Hey everyone, here is your video, part 1 of 2. I'm dividing it into 2 chunks just so that it doesn't take as long to upload to Canvas or to YouTube. I hope you're doing well. I look forward to talking to you tomorrow and seeing your faces. I believe I already sent you the Zoom link for the meeting tomorrow. If not, by the time you watch this, it will be sent. Um, but I've used it so far with a couple other classes and it seems pretty self-explanatory, and it also doesn't kind of shut down and crumble the way WebEx has been doing in many cases when there are too many people using it. So that is Google Hangout. I tried it with my family first and it didn't work very well. So that's why we're using Zoom. And we'll use the same link every week, so you don't have to worry about a new invitation. Okay, so we are talking about today, this week, we're talking about concepts and how that helps us connect our students with our content. And it really, concepts are the glue that holds things together. They are the essential building blocks also of essential questions and understanding. So we're going to do a little bit of a rewind, but not as much as we would have done had it been a normal class. We're doing the Cliffs Notes version of many things here. I don't want to neglect concept-based teaching because it is, first of all, like I said, such a tool for integrating ideas within what we're teaching. So if we are teaching about change or systems or organization or interdependence for the entire year, it can help us tie one topic of instruction to the next. And that's super important for our middle school kids who are still developing the organizational parts of their brain. We're helping them with that organization by saying, look, what we're learning right now, remember how that was about interdependence? So is this. And it helps them be able to find patterns and connections, and it actually helps the synapses in their brains hold on to those things longer. And so I like to think about it in terms of a topic, and this is from Silverstrong and Perini. Thinking about your, like, something that you're going to teach, or even your discipline as a study in a concept. So it might be like if you're doing a unit on linear equations, a study in a concept, or it could just be 8th grade math, a study in a concept. So what do we mean by concepts? You saw a larger list on page 36 that you could use. Really, I want you to focus on the general concepts there on that list. And some of those are captured here: adaptation, balance, change, variation, conflict, interdependence, as we talked about, systems. I know all of you teach, almost all of you, okay, not everybody. The majority of you have either math or science as one of your content areas. And so systems and interdependence are super important there, as are patterns, which I don't see here, but I'll show you that in a minute. In terms of social studies and language arts, these are the two that I used a lot: perspective and power. Power is also super important to science. Perspective is super important to social studies. Power is super important to social studies. And we're going to get to the how that kind of helps you with interdisciplinary teaching in a minute. But I just want you to see that most of these, if we could define them, concepts are abstract nouns. I worked with some teachers right before the world changed at an institute, and that's why we didn't have class that Thursday. And they were saying, this seems like in middle school when we used to plan around themes. And it's true, these are themes, but they're a subset of themes. The themes that when I first started teaching middle school, we taught around were like the rainforest. Okay, so that's a theme, but it's not a concept because it's concrete. If you're looking at a system, like the rainforest is a system, we could talk about systems, but then we could also talk about systems in math and social systems and social studies, and a story as a system in English. So concepts are broader and have the potential to reach all content areas. They are broader than themes and thus give you more power. Science is already using these. I know we're in Virginia and we don't have the next generation science standards, or NGSS, but they are working their way into the Virginia curriculum, not only in the newest science SOLs that have been established, but also just the majority of resources that are out there for science are organized around these uh, these three elements of curriculum: the cross-cutting concepts, the science practices, and then the content. And so a lot of stuff you're going to find out there is already going to be organized around perhaps patterns or cause and effect or scale or energy and matter or structure and function, which is one of my favorite. And then stability and change. And then again, we're seeing some of these like our repeats from just the general concepts. There's systems, there's change, change right there. So a lot of them do overlap. So what I love about this is I don't know if I've told you this. I think I did. That I did my research for my dissertation in a high school in Vermont that had detracked way before everybody was like, right now all of Albemarle schools are detracking. But they were detracking, so they didn't have honors classes and general classes. They put everybody together. And when they did that, they're like, well, shoot, I guess we need to differentiate. And so I was able to study how they were going about that, what they did well, what they needed to work on. And it was like, wow, mind-blowing experience. But this was a teacher that I worked with. I had interviewed him, and then I had gone to the office to wait to interview another interview with the principal. And he came running into the office. He's like, I forgot to say this. And this is the quote. He said, when I think about differentiation, I realize that concepts really are the most important glue that holds our class together, that keeps us. Concept-based teaching privileges people who are not normally given learning privileges. And this is from a teacher who had taught social studies most of his life, but was now teaching humanities. They teamed up the English and the social studies teachers, so they had to teach everything together. Concepts help them hold their content together, and it also helped them connect their students to what's important. So if they were looking at power struggles, every student can relate to that, and then that helps you make a connection to your own power struggles and what comes from that to ones that you see in history. So I thought that was incredibly cool. Like, that's an afterthought. Whew. All right, so I'm going to have you do a pause and post here. I want you to look back at the concept list on page 36 of the Dubé and Hockett book. Look at the general concepts only. Or you can look at the slides posted in the module and look at these two again. And I want you to choose the three concepts that you think are central to both of your content areas. Both. So they have to be important for both. When you've come up with your favorite three, you will pause and post them. And you will post them here at this link, which is, I'll show you what it looks like. Big three. Click. You say, my name is William. And then you say, I had William in Language Arts Methods, and we talked about this on there too. So this might be his favorite one. No, conflict was his favorite one. Conflict. But he also, hopefully he'll be able to spell better than I do. He also likes perspective, perhaps. You get the idea. All right. Sorry, William, you may have changed your mind since then, so I'm not assuming you still like conflict. Not that you like conflict. You get it. Okay. Post, pause and post. Welcome back from pausing and posting. Good to have you back. I can't wait to see what you came up with. As I've already alluded to, concepts can help us with interdisciplinary teaching. Interdisciplinary curriculum is super important. It's actually one of the things that the teacher that I work with in Albemarle County, she sent me her interview questions, and interdisciplinary teaching is one of her interview questions. So it's important in middle school. But what are its drawbacks? So I want you just to, if you need to pause and think about that, be ready with some things that, why is interdisciplinary curriculum or teaching in a middle school important? And then what are its drawbacks or what makes it difficult to implement? Perhaps you have some things on your mind right now. What I love about concepts is it really tackles, it kind of, it capitalizes on what's important and makes it strong and worthwhile. And it kind of takes away some of the negative parts. I mean, I feel like the negative parts for me when we used to do stuff like with the rainforest is like, okay, so the rainforest is the theme, and that's really fun. And we're going to decorate the hallway like a rainforest, and they're going to study the rainforest in science. But like now I have to write about the rainforest, and we have to read stuff about the rainforest. And maybe my kids don't really care about the rainforest. Hey, and maybe I don't really, I mean, I care, but there's a whole lot of things that I know that is more, that are more intriguing to my students than having to find 75,000 things about the rainforest. It didn't really tie very well in with Carla's work as well, my social studies colleague. My math teacher just kept putting all of her word problems in rainforest context, but it just felt like forced connections, and it was difficult to implement with any degree of robustness or even excitement. But if we switch and think about it in terms of concepts, then we've got a better chance of hooking our students. So what you see here, everything that's underlined is a concept. I worked with some teachers and they came up with these. I want you to look at these and see if you can figure out which content area developed each understanding. Students will understand that. And then when we posted them on poster paper around the room, who wanted to steal them? Like which content areas wanted to steal them? So take a look at these. You can pause if you want to and see if you can decide who said what. I'm assuming you've paused. Systems are made of interdependent parts. Change to one part will affect all the other parts. That was science. Who wanted to steal it? Maybe you said social studies. And if you did, you're right, because they were like, we could totally use that. When you change, like if in a society, or even like think about like a culture, you change the geography. If something happens and the geography is changed, the way folks found what they needed to eat, how they bartered or how they traded, everything else changes. So that was something that ended up being powerful for, and then the English teachers were like, well, a story is kind of a system. So a lot of people wanted to steal this one that was created by the science teachers. Conflict can be both constructive and destructive. Who do you think made that up? If you said the social studies teachers, you are correct. They did. I love this. I so wish this is how I studied social studies. Like, what if everything you looked at, you're like, okay, because I mean, really, social studies is a study in conflict and power. So if we're like studying a unit in this conflict, so how was it positive? How did it drive progress? And what did it destroy? What was lost? Man, I would have remembered everything so much better. The English teachers, of course, wanted to steal this, as did the science teachers. Think about earth science. Think about plate tectonics. That's one of the things they were talking about. They were even talking about like producers and consumers in an ecosystem. So yeah, that one was widely liked as well. Language gives us power. Yes, made up by the English department that was working that day, but the social studies teachers wanted it, as did the science teachers when they were talking about classification, and there was just a lot of agreement around that one. Formulas allow us to use known information to discover unknown information. Math teachers. Why didn't my math teacher teach me that? I thought a formula was to trick me. So it might seem, if for you guys who are math people, that might seem obvious. For people who are not math people, it is not. So to say, hey, a formula is like a key, like it unlocks things. Pretty cool. Science teachers might be able to use that as well. This one, music. English wanted to steal. This one, PE. Social studies wanted to steal. I think you can see why, and even in English in terms of debate. So that's the beauty. Like once we start using concepts as seeds to write understanding statements and essential questions, then we've got some ways to help start tying our curriculum together. And also, if we look at each of these, conflict can be both constructive and destructive. Kids understand that in their own lives. They know that when there is a conflict at home, like that there's destruction, and maybe they can find something constructive in it as well, such as like better systems from the outcome. Friend conflicts. I mean, they know this on a personal level. They get this on a personal level. They get this on a personal level. They get this maybe on a personal level, maybe on a hobby level, but it's a way to help them tie in. This is a teacher, a science teacher. I was not going to say that. I was going to have you see if you could guess which content area. But this was a science teacher, and she put her idea for her. They called them generalizations. They're the same as understandings up. And then the students were like, "Oh, we want to make ours too." So they kind of took these and put them in student-friendly language. And I really kind of like theirs, the student versions, better than the teacher versions. So that's some examples of using them and making them explicit to students. The other side of the coin is an essential question. I'm going to ask you for the activity that you're doing to either write understandings or essential questions. You don't have to do both. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. Essential questions are like basically those understandings in question form. How do the arts shape as well as reflect culture? Is there ever a just conflict? Is there a best way to solve a problem? How does culture shape our interactions? How does literature reveal an author's purpose? And how can systems be both interdependent and independent? Now let's contrast those to non-essential questions. Non-essential questions doesn't mean they're not important. We're still going to ask these questions, but they are more instructional questions than they are essential. So they're things we would ask during a lesson or on a quiz. These are the things that we dig into day after day and ask and examine and wonder and pick apart. These are engagement. These are for understanding. If we do it right, these can be for understanding as well. Reveal understanding. So, essential questions also can help us encompass knowledge and skills. This is a Nicole Ehlers, who actually works at the Arboretum now, but when she was teaching at Thomas Harrison and then at Skyline, she used essential questions. What are the advantages and disadvantages of technology in our society? She used that for an entire semester. And when they read the VELT, they had to answer this essential question with an opinion, but they had to use one of these. These are no's. These are knowledge goals right here. They had to use one of those in their answer. So she was not messing around. She was like, this is important. Hey, guess what? It also connects to knowledge. So in chapter 2, it talked about knowledge. This is one example here. It can just be vocabulary. There you go. So this is what you are going to do. You're going to do an interdisciplinary activity. You're going to take all of this and you're going to work together to create an interdisciplinary activity. I'm going to show you what that is first, just so you can see what I'm talking about, what I'm referencing. This is posted in your Canvas module. It's called Interdisciplinary Activity. You'll also see in your Canvas module that, you'll also see in your Canvas module that if you go to people, you'll see that there are some groups. This is the wrong class. You're probably telling me that you're like yelling at me through the screen. Dr. Dubé, that is the wrong class. You are right. That is the wrong class. Okay, go to people. And you see that right now you've got, this is the group you're going to work in for your interdisciplinary. And basically I just try to use your where you sit with some regularity to form your trios for your interdisciplinary groups. You're going to work in these groups, these trios. And then you are going to be working on this activity, one per trio. And here are your directions. If I can get this back up here. your directions. So you're going to work with your assigned trio, and one of you should save a copy of the organizer interdisciplinary activity and rename it with your names and the titles. So interdisciplinary activity for Eric, William, and Emily. Then share that with your two teammates so that all three of you are working from the same Google Doc. Find a way to talk to each other. Maybe like Skype, maybe like Google Hangout, maybe like FaceTime, maybe like a conference call, maybe like a group chat. I don't care. But find a way to be able to talk to each other. You're going to look over your posted concepts in the Padlet and see if you have one in common. If you do, use that one. If you don't, you'll need to figure out to chat to figure that out. Somebody's going to have to give. So again, if you see one that's everybody picked, boom, you've got it. If you see three that everybody picked, then you're still going to have a conversation. You're going to pick one. Once you've decided on a concept, work together to complete the interdisciplinary activity. It's better to work together for all the steps since they build on one another than to divide and conquer. Use chapters 2 and 4 for guidance. And when you've completed your activity, check it over by using the checklist at the end of chapter 2. That's for like chapter 2 is everything except for the last part of that thing, which asks you for a hook, which we're going to look at in the next video. But to put a closing on this part of our learning anyway, you're going to post your completed sheet in the assignment on Canvas. You'll see it's a group assignment, so you're just going to post one per trio. This will count as participation points, and I'll give you feedback on it so that you can revise it before you link it in your project. You're going to link to this thing in your project. All right, so that's your interdisciplinary activity. Before you stop this video, write some questions down so that you remember them when we have our hangout tomorrow, which is going to be a Zoom hangout, and get ready for video 2.